POS operator. She said 3,000 is 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we heading to?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth. The oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the taunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for the immediate release of this minister in the temple of God.
Give us access to our money we put in the bank. POS operator. She said 3,000 is 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we heading to?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth. The oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the taunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for the immediate release of this minister in the temple of God.
Give us access to our money we put in the bank. POS operator. She said 3,000 is 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we heading to?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth. The oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the taunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news.
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
Good morning and welcome to Open Conversation on Atlantic Television Network. Open Conversation is the network's flagship political platform through which trending political news, events and stories are discussed with stakeholders. Through these conversations, Etienne uses political talks about specific issues, party system and actor to explore hope and engender positive impact to the society. Today on Open Conversation, we'll look at these stories. First, Oyo State. APC wants local government chairman of jail term. And then on to Benue State. PDP chairman, secretary suspended by state working committee. And then on to local government autonomy. Apex Court upholds local government tenure elongation. And then on to the End Bad Governance in Nigeria protest. We'll look at developing stories. Tinubu's speech didn't address concerns. PDP, CMPP slams the president. And Russia disassociates itself from flags flown during protest. And still on nationwide protest, we'll look at the 15 points agenda. We are open for adverts placements, bookings, and commercials. You can connect with us on all our ATN socials, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, and on Twitter, Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website, www.atlanticnetwork.tv. We'll go on a short break. When we come back, we'll delve right into the show. Do not go away.
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for the immediate release of this minister in the temple of God.
Give us access to our money we put in the bank. POS operator. She said 3,000 is 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we heading to?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth. The oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the taunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, social economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for the immediate release of this minister in the Temple of Justice.
Give us access to our money we put in the bank. The POS operator, she said 50,000 naira is 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we heading to?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Joining me on Open Conversation this morning is Ndamzi Ekulo, a legal practitioner and political analyst. Good morning, Ndamzi, and welcome to Open Conversation.
Good morning, Laurentia. Good morning, viewers.
And on to the story. All Progressive Congress in Oyo State has warned local government chairmen in the state not to allow Governor Seyi Makinde push them to jail. The party made this declaration via a statement on Monday. The Supreme Court had earlier granted autonomy to local government areas in the country, but reports have it that local government chairmen in the state said they were not satisfied with the decision to grant autonomy to local government areas. The local government chairmen in the state had also resolved to pull out of Association of Local Governments of Nigeria and form their own umbrella association. APC in its reaction warned the local government chairmen not to go against the Supreme Court's judgment. The party, in a statement signed by its publicity secretary, Wasiu Olawale Sadare, warned chairmen and career officers in all the 33 local government councils across the state to distance themselves from the attempt by Makinde to subvert the verdict of the Supreme Court. Sadare, in a statement on Monday, warned the local government chairmen and career officers in the councils that towing the path of the governor might land them in jail sooner than later. In a statement, Sadare accused Makinde of covetousness and lack of respect for constitutional democracy and the rule of law. Ndamzi, now, I don't know if you're aware of the news, but this is happening in Oyo State, a PDP ruling state. And the council chairmen have pulled out of Algon. And they have refused to go with the Supreme Court ruling of autonomy. But isn't that weird? Because that has been the clamoring of practically all local government chairmen that have ever been elected into office, to have autonomy, to be able to take decisions, have access to finances, and then, bring development to their local government area. What is going on in Oyo State?
Thank you very much. I think what is going on in Oyo State, when I read the news, I felt bad because, you see, I have reiterated in different forums that what these politicians have resorted to doing is using the local government as a means of settling political loyalists and those who helped them in the past to attain position. Because if a local government chairman is really ready to deliver good governance to the local people, he or she will be proud that Supreme Court have vindicated them and given them a boost. But it is quite surprising and disheartening that local government chairmen in Oyo State will group themselves and take a public stance about the LG autonomy, then the implication of what they are doing is simple. If they are pulling out of the LG autonomy, it means that is proper contempt of court. Contempt proceedings can be entered against them, and they will be jailed if found guilty. Then secondly, another implication will be that the federal government will refuse to release funds meant for the local government councils in Oyo State, because the democratic principles in which our country is founded is based on rule of law, separation of government, and a just society. So anything short of that is an aberration and totally unacceptable. So I told the line of the APC in Oyo State,
okay,
who have, called out the local government chairman not to commit a jailable offense.
All right. People's Democratic Party in Benue State has been hit by crisis following the alleged suspension of the state chairman of the party, Sir John Mbede, the state secretary, Joseph Nyam, and the state organizing secretary, Moses Audu, by the state working committee of the party. The suspension of the 3 state working committee members was contained in a statement issued on Monday in Makurdi by the state publicity officer of the party, Chief Bemba Ayotom. The statement claimed that the leaders who would proceed with a 1-month suspension were asked over alleged impersonation and instigating crisis during the just concluded World Congresses of the party, among other allegations. They were also directed to appear before a disciplinary committee to answer the charges brought before them. When contacted, the suspended chairman, Sam Mbede, said, "I don't know about that. Bemba Ayotom is suspended by his word, so he is not the publicity secretary of the party. We didn't have any meetings and there was no state working committee meeting. So where did they get that authority of suspending the chairman?" He continues to say, "Up till now, we have not seen anything. Most of them there claiming to suspend people have resigned their positions to contest for various positions in the coming congresses. So how can people who have resigned their positions come to hold a meeting to suspend the chairman? Who are they and where do they hold the meeting? A lot of them have resigned. The state deputy chairman, Zone A, state treasurer, and state organizing secretary have all written letters resigning from their positions. So why are they suspending someone who has already resigned?" Ndamzi, what do you make of the drama that is going on right now in PDP Benue State?
It is really a drama, because that goes to show the characters they have in the leadership cadre out there. You see, leadership, it's all about character. Leadership, it's all about integrity. When people in position do not have character and integrity, then I wonder why they are jostling for leadership positions. The rules of engagement is very clear. But you see politicians, those who want to claim that they are relevant in the system, some of them would want to do certain acts just to prove to their principal that they know what they are doing, not knowing that they are messing up. The rules are very clear as to how people in positions of trust like that can resign. They resign through their various words. And also, if there are issues in the party, the suspension or disciplinary action begins from the ward levels.
Not from the state
working committee.
The state working committee ratifies the
state ratifies when the ward takes such a disciplinary measure. So I just wonder why politicians have refused to play by the rules. It is worrisome. It really calls for rejigging.
Right.
Yes, it really calls for rejigging, because if it continues like this, I wonder what they at the helm of affair now will hand over to the incoming ones. It shows if they continue that, it becomes a norm. Corruption will keep eating up the system.
All right. Interesting times ahead. We'll go on a short break. When we come back, we'll look at the Apex Court upholding tenure elongation. Do not go away.
What Nigerians need now is not about the Tonte. Who can come and where we are?
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on The Fact Today, only on ATN.
representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for the immediate release of this minister in the Temple of Justice.
Give us access to our money we put in the bank.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Supreme Court's July 11, 2024 judgment includes far-reaching decisions that will significantly alter local government administration in the country. The Supreme Court has affirmed the financial autonomy of Nigeria's 774 local governments. In the unanimous judgment of its 7 July 11, the Supreme Court unanimously upheld the suit brought before it by the federal government to strengthen the independence of local governments in the country. A member of the panel, Justice Emmanuel Agim, who delivered the court's lead judgment, held that the local governments across the country should, from July 11, receive their allocations directly from the Accountant General of the Federation. He ruled that it is illegal and unconstitutional for governors to receive and uphold funds allocated to local government areas in their states. He ordered immediate enforcement and compliance with the orders of the courts by state governments and successive governments henceforth. Today we'll be discussing an important part of this judgment, and that is the local government tenure elongation by the Supreme Court. The judgment partly reads: under Section 135, subsection 3 of the Constitution, the tenure of 4 years for the President, provided for by Section 135, subsection 2 thereof, shall be extended for periods not exceeding a period of 6 months at any time by a resolution of the National Assembly if it is not practicable to hold elections. By the same token, by a law of a State House of Assembly, the tenure of local government councils can be legally extended for any reason, such as insecurity or war, if it becomes impracticable or impossible for elections into the local government councils to be conducted. The mandate given to an elected local government council is the mandate of the electorate of that local government area. And if the tenure is extended, it is the people's mandate that is extended. If the tenure of a local government council is truncated, as it is the norm now, it is an illegal termination of the electorate's mandate, and it is not to be encouraged but roundly condemned. Joining me on Open Conversation again is Victor Eniche, a social political analyst. Good morning, Victor, and welcome to Open Conversation.
Good morning, Larissa. It's always good to be here.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure having you, by the way. Now, Victor, what is your take on this Supreme Court judgment on local government tenure elongation? You know, when this Supreme Court judgment, when the judgment came out, a lot of media houses, people focused mainly on the financial autonomy and also on the separation of powers. But nobody is talking about this very sensitive aspect, and that has to do with, you know, the tenure elongation of local government chairmen. What do you have to say to this?
I don't think people are not talking about it. First of all, I think the issue was prior to the release of the CTC, of the judgment, a lot of details were skeptical.
Yes.
People were not sure of the details of the judgment. So, you know, having released the CTC of that judgment, it enabled people to properly scrutinize what judgment was, and of course the order that came with the judgment, which is implementing the credit of the judgment immediately.
Yes.
You know, I think it's just the mischief of politicians to ignore certain things, you know, certain part of the law when it doesn't favor them. I think that's just what is happening.
Playing out.
What should happen is, you know, laws when implemented or when made should be implemented. There are agencies of government that is saddled with responsibility of, you know, executing laws, you know, as made by the legislation and, you know, interpreted by the courts as it is right now with the Supreme Court. So for me, I think it is the mischief of politicians and the failure of agents of government to implement certain policies. For instance, if the court has declared, the highest court of the land, I must point, has declared that it is illegal to have caretaker committee chairmen, take over local government affairs. If the court has said it is illegal for you to, of course, although that part is the River State case is that they were not. Okay, no, they were because their tenure was elongated by the State
tenure of the outgone River State Council chairman.
Yes,
it was elongated by
the State House.
Yes, of Assembly.
Then, So for me, I think it behoves on the other arms of government that is saddled with responsibility to implement these laws. If someone comes and says he's caretaker committee of River State, and the law has said there's nothing like that, it is not recognizable, it is illegal. I think the police, for instance, as one aspect, should not recognize such individuals, because by law it is said that it is illegal and you're not meant to be there. But you remember some weeks ago we had an argument that I think that was propagated by, is it Sheyi Makinde of Oyo State, when he talked about the judgment giving 90 days space for the caretakers to be there and for elections to be conducted. I think the release of these documents, has trashed that idea that was pushed by
the judgment
the
was
governor.
That it should be implemented with immediate effect. Yes.
So, but the argument then back and forth, what happens then? Should there be anarchy? Of course, nature, like they say, abhors a vacuum. So what is to be done in those cases? That is the argument where we are. But one thing that we must emphasize on is the directions or directives of the judgment, which said with immediate effect. Now, for the case of River State,
Well, we'll still get to the case of River State, but let me hear from Barrister Ndamzi. Barrister Ndamzi, you're a legal practitioner. What is your take on this matter?
Yes, the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court did is interpreting that section of the Constitution that allows the president tenure elongation should, in case it becomes practically impossible to hold elections. So the court went ahead to tailor it down and also said that such token, applies to the local government areas in Nigeria. So it's a matter of interpretation, and the Supreme Court have, opened our eyes as to what that section of the law have said. And just like my brother Victor here posited, that those saddled with responsibility of enforcing these laws, in fact, in my own opinion, I think they are weak. They are weak in performing their duties as enshrined by the police.
Who should enforce it?
The police. The Police Act empowers the police to maintain law and order in our society. So if the highest court in the land have given a directive, I think it behooves on the police authority to move in and enforce it. But also, another thing is there is also lack of political will from the leadership of the country to allow some of these things happen according to our rules and set laws. Because I remember the time of Yaradua, when the Supreme Court ordered that Rotimi Amechi should be sworn in immediately as the governor of the state. I remember Yaradua made a statement and authorized the IG to move in immediately, making sure that that decision of the Supreme Court is implemented, enforced immediately. And we all saw how the police swung into action and made sure that, Amechi had a hitch-free entry into his office and all that. So, in this regard, one would have expected that Supreme Court haven't taken that decision. The IG haven't been authorized by the president, should either communicate the states where caretaker committees are being used.
Yes.
Communicate them to do the needful or face prosecution. Yes. And also, it is also a case of character. We saw a particular state, that very day the Supreme Court gave the judgment, a particular state asked their caretaker committee members to resign. They all resigned. That is character and integrity. Holding on to power against the wishes of the law, against the wishes of the people, it's really an aberration.
We'll still come down to holding on to power. But then there has been concerns and arguments around the Supreme Court judgment, because, you know, when we have conversations like this, people tend to, you know, periscope on the judgment and bring out certain things that, you know, they consider a lacuna and make arguments from it. So now let me read it out very briefly. It said, by the same token, by a law of a state house of assembly, the tenure of local government councils can be legally extended, underscore, for any reason, such as insecurity or war, or if it becomes impracticable or impossible for elections into the local government councils to be conducted. Now, on my show yesterday, I also had a legal practitioner who argued that there is a caveat to tenure elongation, and that is in face of insecurity or war. And now, he likened it, I now asked questions with regards to the River State situation. And he was the opinion that it is not yet a war situation. Now, I asked, the political crisis in River State, can it give rise to insecurity? If you recall, towards the time of very close to the expiration of the tenure of the outgone chairman, still on Open Conversation, we had conversations with different stakeholders. And some of them, particularly the people there that were in support of caretaker chairman, said that it was impractical to hold elections, local council elections, because the polity is already heated, and if elections are to hold, it was going to be very violent and might cost lives. Now, same people are also now arguing that it wasn't that bad. So now, what do we go with? However, there is also a caveat. He said for any reason. And when he said for any reason, such as he's citing an example of what can qualify as any reason. So as any reason in this circumstance may be subjective. So if the State House of Assembly, in their wisdom, they have analyzed the polity or the situation in the state and say this is dangerous at this point, or for whatever reason they think is legal, extend the tenure, should they hold? Barrister Ndamsi.
Yes, thank you very much. Going by the provision of the Constitution said in state of insecurity or war, and it went ahead to say if it is impracticable
or impossible
to hold the election. That is to say, in interpreting that section of the Constitution, you will need to consider other ingredients which can make the holding of election at that period impossible. Okay, so what has happened in River State over time, you know, heated up the polity, and it would be very impracticable, impossible to hold local council elections at that time. And I think that is the reason why the State Electoral Commission never brought out a timetable.
It wasn't a case of the RISIEC not bringing out a timetable. It was the case of the RISIEC coming out to say that they have not been funded by the state government.
Yes, do not. Why I said why the RISIEC didn't bring out timetable is this. The River State Law Number 5, the River State Local Government Law Number 5 allows the State Independent Electoral Commission to bring out timetable 3 months to the expiration of tenure of local government chairman. And you see, time was fast spent, okay, because of the disagreement between the factions in the state. Time was fast spent, and possibly the government, in their own wisdom, didn't want the election to hold. Otherwise, he would have instructed the RISEC to bring out timetable. So, timetable never came out. So, the Assembly saw the need, saw that it was impracticable, impossible to hold the elections, and did the needful by extending the tenure of local government.
All right, so Barrister Ndamsi, you brought out 2 concerns. The first one is that it was impracticable because of the political tension in River State. Now, the other one you brought out was that the governor didn't fund RISEC. And according to the local government law number 5, RISEC should be funded and should announce timetable 3 months to the expiration. Now, these things were not done. And you recall, Victor, that calls were being made. I'm sure you are one of the stakeholders that also made calls for local government elections to happen. And concerns were raised by different quarters, particularly when it was getting to 3 months to the expiration of this council chairman, and nothing was being done. Campaigns have not started, primaries were not held, and all of that. Now, the River State House of Assembly elongating the tenure of this council chairman. Let's just premise this argument on the governor's refusal to fund the RISEC. Is it tenable? Is it enough reason for the State House of Assembly to elongate the tenure of this council chairman?
Well, you know, I like to be very practical about some of these issues, and I think I've had that conversation on this. I've said it before on several forums that the issue started from the failure, and I say failure because the governor has a responsibility. It is not about your emotions. It is not about your personal struggles. It has no business with your current personal emotional state. You have a responsibility as a governor to fund different agencies. RISEC is just one agency. We have a lot of agencies, you know, in the state. That the function of the governor is to ensure that there are funds available for these people. Just like the police coming to say they are not able to provide security because the funds that was
federal government has not funded them.
Then we'll start giving excuses that because the president was not having good relationship with the National Assembly. No, it is failure on your part. It is the failure of the governor in his responsibility to fund RISEC. 3 months, that's what the law said, 3 months before the expiration of tenure. So, I mean, I don't think you can defend that by saying it was impracticable or impossible to run an election. The governor did not have, I mean, it was just about the time when he announced that the IGR of the state had increased.
So there was fund.
So we cannot say there was no fund. If you talk about political tension, it is just an aspect of governance. You know, we have the state legislature, we have the executive arm of government. And what was happening was the tussle, checks and balance between the state legislature and the executive arm of government. So you can't call that that is not an excuse or a reason why you should not fund the agency. You know, that is a natural thing with democracy. The legislature will always, you know, ask questions and try to checkmate the function or the roles that the executive is playing. So for me, any excuse you want to bring up at that instance is unreasonable and dead. So for me, it starts from the failure. We can hinge it, just like you said, on the failure of the governor to be responsible to his duties as a governor. Moving forward, in that aspect where the governor has failed to take that decision of implementing or funding the State Electoral Commission, the State House of Assembly at that time made a decision. Okay, look, since you cannot, this was even before this CTC came out, since you cannot conduct election, we're going to give 3 months. Say, okay, let's give space for the people that are there, that were, as we all agree, elected by the people. Say, no, let's just assume that the people, the mandate of the people should last a bit longer. Why it gives you enough time to implement and, you know, conduct elections. And in that responsibility, what happened was in the failure of the governor to take responsibility, the State House of Assembly took responsibility and gave the governor a leeway to correct some of the decisions and actions that he took. And the question is, from that point, what happened was politics and I mean, as of today, Laresha, I don't know if you're aware, but I'm aware that most of the parties have not done primaries. And in the timetable that RISEC released, if you check, some of the deadlines had passed. And we've not seen activities. But you still hear these politicians talk about elections in October. And sometimes I look at it and I wonder, what exactly is the plan of the government of the day as regards the election? This is what you're doing. Is you're taking the power from the people and putting it on yourself. And that is what, for me, I think that is what I'm against. You know, what governance entails is that there are different responsibilities. Part of the responsibility a governor has is relinquishing some responsibilities and giving it to certain agencies. If you fail to do that, you're going to distort the workings of government and governance. So for me, what the governor is doing in that regard, because there's no clear. Look at RISEC. I mean, I listened to a lot of people talk and listen to RISEC, their communication. It is not clear as to date. If election is holding, there are procedures for elections to hold. Are they being taken? No, they are not. As a matter of fact, you know, interestingly, I think the APC took, you know, the State Electoral Commission to court, refusing, barring INEC from releasing. And I asked myself, what is the interest of the APC and why is that decision taken? So for me, the political actors are not being honest. You know, they are all trying to deprive the people of their constitutional responsibility and right to elect or bring in people into
the concern of APC was they were questioning RISEC. According to Tony Okocha said that when INEC called stakeholders meeting to inform them of the council elections, that he did not receive an invitation. His political party did not receive an invitation, so his political party was not present at that stakeholder meeting. And he was of the opinion that APC is not a mushroom party in Rivers State. It's a major opposition party. So how do you have a stakeholder meeting?
For me, political talk. I mean, the INEC released a publication concerning that meeting. It was online. How else, you know, are you supposed to be invited as a political
Apparently
party?
they extend invitation.
Yes, I mean, so for me, why that caveat there, the question I'm asking is, you know, what is the interest of these political actors doesn't reflect, you know, as the interest of the people. It doesn't. It doesn't reflect the interest of the people, because what it does is there's the political argument, and this party is trying to protect itself. This individual in this party, this individual. For me, you know, why we're hinging it on the failure of the governor, you know, to take responsibility. Even as at this point, I still expect the governor to take some decisions that would ensure that the mandate of the people is not enslaved or manipulated.
Now, Ndazi, you know, there will be conversations. We are having conversations around the local government tenure elongation. Now, one would wonder, the Supreme Court having given its judgment that, you know, in Rivers State in particular, you would agree with me that the caretaker committee chairman or the caretaker committee, as it were, across the local governments, whereas we are sworn in under very controversial circumstances. And now that Supreme Court judgment has come out, do you think the governor at this point is committing an infraction, still going ahead with these caretaker committees, considering that the Supreme Court judgment actually supports and backs up the action of the Rivers State House of Assembly?
Yes, I think so, because the judgment of the Supreme Court, it's quite clear. The law works in retrospective and not in retroactive, okay? But most legislations, if it were a legislative instrument, may have intention of, you know, directing the law to be in retroactive. But in this regard, the judgment of the Supreme Court is very clear, as seen in the CTC. The court gave a clear-cut decision that the judgment commences immediately. That is to say, any action or inaction taken by the government of any of the states where caretaker is in operation ordinarily should put a hold. Continuing in that caretaker capacity, it's a flagrant disregard to the rule of law and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So, this will be an opportunity to even call out the caretaker committee chairman. They should be honorable enough to resign. If I were any of the members in that committee, the Supreme Court haven't given that judgment, because that judgment that they terminated the life of every caretaker committee member in Nigeria, because the judgment said with immediate effect. I would resign and take a bow and tell my principal the reason why I'm backing out.
All right. As it stands, you know, already there is a local government law that elongated the tenure. Now, people would argue that there was an ex parte order by Justice Wale, right? Now, a Supreme Court judgment has come. I'm sure you agree with me that he has made a nonsense of that order. The question would be, should these outgone chairmen, whose tenures were elongated, should they naturally assume office again pending when elections are done?
No.
They cannot.
Yes, if they force themselves back to the office, they will be committing a very huge offense.
Okay.
So the advice to the outgoing chairman will be that they should allow, because there are substantive suits in the court of competent jurisdiction that is addressing the facts issues, are addressing the issue of local government elongation. So the matters are before the court, and I will advise that they allow the processes to run. By the time the matter gets to Supreme Court, it is very trite that doctrine of stare decisis will apply.
Now, the thing is, yes, when the matter gets to Supreme Court and allowing the judicial process to naturally take its course, but you would agree with me that in certain situations, some of these court cases will be going back and forth till the expiration of the livelihood or the tenure of some of these cases. So the outcome chairman, I see where elections will happen, and probably 2 years later the Supreme Court will now decide and rule in their favor, and nothing it's of no effect. Isn't that justice denied? No,
I wouldn't say that is justice denied, because the Supreme Court gave this, interpretation, okay, in line with the Constitution, okay. But the question is this: how did this judgment emanate? It emanated from the Office of the Attorney General against the 36 state governors in Nigeria. So a particular mention or concern wasn't about Rivers State.
Yes.
And there is nowhere in that judgment where the Supreme Court gave a particular order directing that the Rivers State elongation is valid. So now, to give it a proper foundation, okay, to lay proper foundation to this, sustainably, matters are in court about local government elongation in Rivers State. So by the time it progresses, at that point,
right, because the Supreme Court judgment is more like a local classicus.
Is a local classicus judgment, and Supreme Court hardly reverses itself. Yeah. For Supreme Court to revert itself, it means it won't be the full court. And from that judgment, it is trite that it was a unanimous judgment.
Yes, it was a unanimous
all judgment. The jurists in that panel agreed with the reasoning of the lead judge. So it will be difficult to obtain.
All right.
This is my opinion.
Victor, what is the way forward at this point? Because whether we like it or not, this is the reality of Rivers State. And apparently the governor has not adhered to the Supreme Court judgment of doing away with the caretaker chairman. So we are at the crossroads now in Rivers State. Probably with the protests ongoing, the Rivers State polity seems to calm the Rivers State polity to some extent. But the truth remains that once this protest is done, the politics will start again, and definitely it will be more heated than before, particularly in face of this Supreme Court judgment. What is the way forward?
Well, unfortunately for the case of in Rivers State, it's a bit more complex than others. Just like Barrister said, we have pending issues in the court that still leaves contention. There's no certainty in certain issues. For instance, we're still struggling with which is the legitimate Rivers State House of Assembly. I have my opinion about that, but at this point, I don't think my opinion is what should matter. What should matter is the law, what the law has said concerning these issues. So for me, I think the onus rests mostly on the decision of the governor. In setting the state aright, I feel there are certain decisions that he must take in good faith. For instance, the elections, planned by RISEC, I'm honestly not seeing that sincerity of intention in the activities or the way that this
RISEC is going about its activities.
you know, if you give a deadline,
it's not transparent.
It's not
transparent.
It's not. It's like I look at, and the more you look, the less you see.
So even that why
so we
in the first place why APC went to court. Putting one of his prayers was about the electoral process that INEC is the RISEC. He's questioning the electoral process.
That's why I start by saying, unfortunately for Rivers State, you know, the case is quite complex. You know, it's not a straightforward case where we still have issues concerning legislation. By right, this is the time where the State House of Assembly should have come in to correct certain things. But at this point, we don't even have a straightforward, clearly defined direction as it concerns the State House of Assembly. For us is okay, these are the people taking decisions, you know, or these are the people that are not supposed to take decisions. We still have that battle, you know. So that's why
the governor is choosing to work with the persons, the house of the faction that he chooses. That's the thing.
That's what I'm saying. Unfortunately,
that brings us to the interference of the executive in the business of the legislature, as it were, in Rivers State. Now, there are clear separation of powers.
Of course.
The executive is the executive, the legislature is the legislature, the judiciary is the judiciary. But here you see in Rivers State a clear interference of the executive in legislative functions and even in judicial judgments.
Yeah, so the thing is this, if the executive arm of government goes against the law, what happens? I then know instruments. Exactly, I then know instruments to correct
the legislature.
So where in the case where this is happening, the question, the instrument for straightlining some of these issues, who is supposed to do it? In the case where we have the State House of Assembly, the governor taking side, the law, several judgments have been given. They are enforcers of the law. The duty of these enforcers are to enforce the law. And if they enforce the law, the governor would have to stick to that direction. See, I'll give you an instance. When the police decided to lock all the four council secretaries, has it been open?
No, it has not.
Has the governor given orders for anybody to go there? Just because they
say... you can see the political undertone and interpretation that action was given.
I want to give an instance. If we all agree that the Supreme Court is supreme, in its mandate, and has given a judgment that supersedes all, and it has said that in law it does not recognize caretaker committee, and individuals go around parading themselves as caretaker committee chairman openly in public space, what is the function of the police or law agencies in terms of impersonation? You know, the unfortunate part is, Barrister, you can correct me on that the judgment did not criminalize the CTC member. In the judgment, it did not criminalize it. Okay. So there's a caveat in terms of how the law responds to it. It wasn't clear in terms of, but then if a judgment is given, any violation of that law naturally becomes criminal. Yes, if I claim that I am Loresha, I go around defrauding people.
It's impersonation.
It's impersonation. And that is where the law enforcement agencies should brace up and take their responsibility. So you see that the failure of these organs of government to checkmate and execute judgment and laws given is now a barrier. So for the situation in Rivers State, you have the governor that has immunity taking decisions, and insisting on certain things that are not, law. And the question is, since the State House Assembly is still battling with themselves to say who is what, we have the National Assembly. This is where it should come in. This is, I think, in the Constitution, this is the instance where the National Assembly
legislates for the states. Where there is state of emergency. There's no state of emergency.
Not just state of emergency. If there's no state legislation or legislative arm of that particular government, the Federal House of Representatives, I believe, comes in to function or perform the duties and responsibility that the State House of Assembly should perform. So in this case where we're having crisis, you can say we don't have, because if the governor says this and the law says this,
if the law, no. Hold on, if you say we don't have, there was a judgment by the appeal court.
I said if.
What the governor chooses, the faction he chooses to work with, that the governor chooses to work with a certain faction does not legalize that faction.
Exactly.
What legalizes a faction is, one, the mandate of the people, and two, court judgment.
It means the governor is going against a certain law. Isn't that what it means?
In this case, the appeal court clearly says in its ruling that the speakership of Martins Amehule is not in contention.
Exactly.
It's not in contention. And I don't know if you're privy to the appeal at the Supreme Court.
Yes.
If you're privy to it, then you would know that Okojumbo and the other three are not part of the appellants.
Yes.
It is the governor that is the first. So the question would be, if in the matter of the appeal court, Okojumbo and the three others were the appellants, 1, 2, 4, be respondents. Now, how come in the Supreme Court's judgment, in the Supreme Court appeal, the appeal to the Supreme Court, the governor now is the first appellant? What happened to Okojumbo and the others? They are not part of that suit. That is to show that by the reason of the ruling of that appeal court, it sets aside Okojumbo is a truth. My job as a journalist is to investigate matters and be impassionate about it and say things as they are so people will not be misled. Well, so if the appeal court says the Martin Samehule's speakership is not in contention in the first place, the second point will be Justice Omotosho, in his judgment, recognized Martin Samehule as the Speaker of the House.
I don't think it has been
and it has not been vacated.
Yes, it has not been vacated.
It has not been vacated. So that is subsisting.
Well,
it is real.
I think this is where we're
going to see. Hold on. When you also come down to the issue of jurisdiction of the courts that superintended over this matter, the Okojumbo went to a state high court to get its authenticity. Martin Samehule went to Federal High Court. And then, if you're to follow it in order, it was Danagogo first. And then, Danagogo was recognizing Edison Ehe. You recall that Edison Ehe resigned.
Yeah.
The order did not recognize Okojumbo. Yeah. And after that, Martin Samehule had to go to Justice Omotosho of the Federal High Court. Meanwhile, Danagogo was of the State High Court. Now, after that, Okojumbo came up and went to Justice Wali. If you're to follow in order, that of Justice Omotosho right now is the one that is subsisting, and it has not been vacated. That's the most important thing. It has not been vacated.
Which means Martin Samuel
and then has... Exactly. And then the appeal court comes up to say again that in the matter of jurisdiction, the State High Court does not have jurisdiction. That's number one. Number two, it also said in the speakership of, with regards to the speakership of Martin Samehule, it is not in contention. It's a simple English, no matter how it's being interpreted. So as it stands, it is subject to argument. But from the facts on the table, as long as Martin Samehule's speakership, the judgment of Justice Omotosho has not been vacated, it is still subsisting. Probably at this point, Rivers people have to wait for the Supreme Court to hear what the Supreme Court has to say. But now the question is, the prayer in Supreme Court also has to do with appealing the appeal court judgment. And what was the appeal court judgment? It's still based on jurisdiction and not the speakership of Martin Samehule. Well, you see the trick?
Well, you know, just like I said, the complexities of the situation in Rivers State, somehow I want to blame the judiciary, or some personals or players in the judiciary that has, failed to stick to a particular principle when it comes to judgment. We've seen Court of Coordinate Jurisdiction giving several judgments that is conflicting. And then you ask yourself, what exactly, if this judge is saying this, and this judge is saying this. You remember, after back and forth with Justice Wali and Danagogo, the court on itself denied locus to hear the case.
That was Justice Bassam.
So, yeah.
That was Justice Bassam.
So if a state high court is saying, I do not have jurisdiction to hear the case, and in that same state, another state is giving judgment for that same case. That's what I'm saying. I can blame the judiciary. But moving forward,
why would you blame in this case, blaming the judiciary? The state's high court is under the payroll of who?
No, for me, that would be an allegation.
Hold on. No, but that's a fact. No, the state high court is under.
You don't have facts to say that influenced the decision.
The state high court is under the payroll of the states in this instance. And then when you look at the list, the exclusivity of the Federal High Court, probably that could also be a reason why matters relating to the state the governor of a state, matters relating to state houses of assembly, it falls under the jurisdiction of the federal and not the states. Well, but then, Ndamzi, you are the legal practitioner here. Everything we have said so far is from the layman's point of view. So what is your take on this? And then what is the way forward? Okay.
Just like he said that the River State matter is complex. Complex in the sense that there are questions before the court on which is the valid House of Assembly member. And in my own opinion and wisdom, I think the Court of Appeal have helped in resolving this question. But for political differences and misunderstanding, players, political gladiators have misinterpreted the judgment of the court to suit their own, beliefs and intentions in the system. So I would rather advise that we be patient, since the matter is already before the Apex Court. Let the Apex Court consolidate these issues and come up with a final decision in the interest of peace and harmony and the interest of good governance in our state.
All right. End bad governance in Nigeria, developing stories. PDP says Tinubu's speech didn't address concerns. People's Democratic Party has said President Bola Tinubu's speech on the ongoing protest confirmed the All Progressive Congress administration's insensitivity towards Nigerians and the precarious situation in the country. National Publicity Secretary of PDP, Honorable Debo Ologunagba, said it is appalled that despite his prodding of the president to speak to the nation, his speech failed to offer any concrete measure to address the excruciating hardship in the country. Ologunagba, in a statement, said the president's speech failed to respond to the demands by the citizens for immediate measures to reduce the price of petroleum products, halt the fall of the naira, and urgent intervention in the provision of food items to starving Nigerians. PDP, however, called on President Tinubu to come to terms with the facts that the nation is in dire straits under his watch. The Conference of Nigeria Political Parties, on its part, said President Tinubu's speech was a grossly inadequate response to the widespread protests sweeping the nation. CNPP lamented the president's silence on concrete measures to alleviate the suffering caused by the removal of fuel subsidies. CNPP, in a signed statement by its Deputy National Publicity Secretary, Comrade James Ezema, described the president's address as a masterclass in evasion, obfuscation, and blame shifting, failing to address the core issues driving the protest. The CNPP also condemned the APC's government's decision to float the naira without a full cabinet in place, arguing that it has exacerbated the economic chaos, leaving Nigerians to bear the brunt of the administration's incompetence. Strong word there by PDP and CNPP. Let's start with you, Victor. What is your take on this? Do you agree with them that the president's speech failed to address the real issues and demands of the protesters?
I do. I mean, in all honesty, I agree that, the speech of the president did not, address or cushion any effect or the reason for the protests. I say this because, when we have a government that is mostly reactive rather than being proactive, these are the kind of issues that you have. And the truth is this: there's no amount of statements, there's no amount of words that this president would have said. When I say word, as an actionable word that he would have said that would stop or immediately reduce the sufferings and the reason for the protest. There's none. Even if he comes down to say, I reduced fuel to 45 naira, we know that is impractical, we know that it is not feasible. So it will still do nothing. If he comes to say, I reduced rice to 30,000 naira per kg for the whatever bag, it will not do anything because it is not enough to say it. Is it something that is actionable? No. So for me, no matter what the president would have said, he still would not have done. Although what some Nigerians were looking for is, for the president to come, and tell them that their fears are not real. Tell them that the sufferings will end immediately. And if the government has, before now, taken decisions on action that have impoverished or further impoverished the people, no statement, no press conference or press release would alleviate that. Rather, what I expect to see is practical terms. I mean, I don't know. I'll speak for myself. We've been hearing of thousands of bags of rice, to different states. I have not. Okay. I have friends across the nation. I've not heard one person tell me, I was able to buy a 60 kg bag of rice for this amount. I have not seen, I have not heard. And if that is not, I mean, we've been hearing of CNG buses for how many months now? I don't know the person that has entered buses, CNG buses in this part of this country, or even seen a plant being built, because they kept saying they are building stations across the nation. We have not seen. And if we're not seeing this thing, if you come and tell us that rice is now free, and I'm still going to buy a cup of rice for above 500, your statement makes no sense. So for me, at this point, what we need is beyond press release and whatever the president did there. For me, bound to pressure to, from what people have been saying, come out and talk, come out. But for me, he should take decisions, the government of the day. For instance, some weeks ago, we had Kerry come out to say that the refinery will start producing, Port Harcourt refinery will start producing by August. Are we in April? Is this not August? What did the president come out to say? By 17th of August, the refinery will start producing. Did he say that? He did not say. And those are the kind of things that the people wanted. And when you say things like that, definite statement. It wasn't done. Rather, what we were getting is, just like this, and the CMPP said, shifting of blames. I understand that there are a lot of people to be blamed, and this is that aspect of his speech, I respect. Talking about taking responsibility, it is my responsibility. Well, it's not enough to, verbally say, I am taking responsibility. The speech did not give us timeline. The speech did not give us specifics. The speech did not give us tags to hold on to and say, this is what the president says. So for me, the speech, it really did not do any positive to the government or the people. All right.
Damzi, now some persons, were of the opinion that, like Victor has said, the governor was shifting, the president was shifting blames, but then the president, probably is open to argument, but then wasn't it important at this point that the president makes it clear that, okay, I have taken this step to alleviate the pain that you feel. I have, over time, increased the FAC allocation to your state governors. And you recall that the president in his speech said that over 570 billion has been released to the governors. So should he take all the blame? The people should get to know where their monies are going to. The people who are protesting should also know that apart from holding the president responsible, state governors have questions to answer. And not just state governors, when you look at it critically, even the Senate, even the House of Rep, even the state houses of assembly, because, I mean, they get constituency projects, the tunes of hundreds of millions. So, but then, what's your take? Do you agree that the president's speech didn't do much? And then the angle of shifting blames, was the president wrong to tell Nigerians that this is the step I have taken? If these governors had actually judiciously made use of this money, don't you think it would have actually trickled down to the grassroots and they would have felt some level of relief?
The presidential address that day was as a result of the End Bad Governance protest in Nigeria. And the End Bad Governance protest listed out a number of demands. Okay? One would have expected Mr. President to come out and address those demands one after the other. For example, a particular concern is on the removal of subsidy. We expected Mr. President that very day to tell Nigerians the gains of the removal, but we didn't hear them say anything about the benefits this removal of subsidy have yielded the country. And it is believed that removing the subsidy will help the country in terms of boosting our savings and making us rich. Because a country who now We should be boasting that in our reserve we have so amount of money and we are investing it in a particular sector. The president never told us all that. He only came out and kept assuring things will get better. Same thing they told Nigerians. We should be patient with President Buhari. President Buhari, has done out his term, and they are still asking Nigerians to be patient that things will get better. That strategy is wrong. It's wrong because there are demands made by Nigerians. Mr. President, address the issue of subsidy. In my opinion, I had expected Mr. President to say, okay, let us have a short-term measure of removal of this subsidy. Let's have a short-term measure. We are reverting back to subsidy payment for a number of months, maybe 6 months, to cushion the effect of fear. Maybe bringing down fuel price to, even though not the 100 naira protesters are asking, but at least to a reasonable price of 300, 350, up to even 400. That would douse the tension. The food crisis, the food inflation is biting on the people. Look at, I bought tomato yesterday. I know how much I bought. It's just so annoying. Important thing I love so much in his speech is the issue of ethnic bigotry. I love that, and I hail him for taking up that stand. It is totally unacceptable for a particular section of the country to, jeopardize another section. So, then addressing the concern Mr. President raised, that he has been releasing improved allocations to the governors. Yes, the governors should share a bigger part of the blame. I stumbled into a document, which has...
When the president came into power, he clearly said that the economy was, dangling on the apex, on the brink of collapse. He made some very concerning revelations about the economy and the state of Nigeria. Now, after all that statement was made, you would agree with me, how many billion was released for the office of the First Lady to buy cars? Can you recall that?
About 1.5 billion.
How many billion again was released for the Senate to buy vehicles? Over 70 billion. Should we go on and on and on? The president expended his monies on international trips in 6 months. Should we go on and on? When you look at the cost of governance, you would wonder, and probably probably some of the things that angered the protesters even more after the presidential speech was, these were the concerns of the protesters. We cannot be crying, and prayers will be sent into the accounts of certain people, and ego will be landing anyhow in the Senate floor, while even chicken cannot land in the houses or on the table, on the dining table of the citizens on whose mandate and taxes they are feeding fat. So the question is, even though the actions by some of the protesters are condemnable, taking the violent approach, probably because they don't know much, or they don't know who to address their anger to. But the thing here is this: is it not time that protesters start genuinely asking questions, because these demands are by so many people? And is it not time to actually focus on the states and start demanding that governance should actually trickle down to them? Yeah, take it or not, the federal government is very far from the grassroots, but the state is closer. The local government is even closer than the state. Isn't it time? You recall in Rivers State, protesters went to Government House, and the governor, in saying, "I feel your pain," offered them money for pure water and bread. That is in comparison to the 5 billion naira palliative. Now, when he was offering the money for pure water and bread, he did not at any point say, "Oh, we have received so and so amount of money intervention fund from the president. Probably, if the presidential speech had come before the protesters went to government house, I am sure the reaction would be quite different. They will be demanding from the governor. Because if you divide 570 billion, that is over 15 billion naira for one state. So I think at this point, the state governor should make it make sense to the citizenry. What are they doing with monies given to them, Victor Niche? Is it not time for the right questions to be asked the right people?
I think it's not time. It's been time several years ago.
Interesting.
It's way past the time. It's interesting how we talk about ending bad governance and then we're looking at president. What is governance? Basically the machinery that drives organization in every society. We have governance in rural areas, governance in the state, federal. What is government? Government is IGR. The states, the federation will generate funds, or the different federating state will generate funds to send to the federation account. The federal government will now sit down and say, okay, this is what you take because according to certain factors, different states take. Why are they releasing the funds? The idea is this is what you need to develop your people. This is what you need to develop your people. So they give out to the various states. Then we will hold this one. We are going to hold it so that anything you cannot do, we are going to do. What it means is that everybody has a role, a function. The question, just like you asked, and I think is very important, is what is being done by the state government? What is being done by these people with the money that is being released to them? Can we say, in all honesty, that the presidency or the federal government has not given the state enough funds to execute proper governance at the state level? If we cannot say that, what it will mean is that the president or the federal government has not failed in its responsibility to disburse funds or monies that is meant by the state to develop their various areas. Rather, what we can say is that, trickling down the cause and effect, that it is the state government that has failed in implementing this thing, that monies are being given for them to function. Because if the state government had come out to say, we don't have enough money from the federation account, we're not receiving enough funds from the federal government, that is why we're not functioning as a state, we can hold the federal government completely. But this one, the state government have not complained. As a matter of fact, they have even come out to say, we have received more money from the federation account, we have received more money from the presidency. But have we done what we're supposed to do? What can we say? Let's use a case study for Rivers State. And you might be surprised to know how well Rivers State is doing as compared to several other states. Because if you go to some state like Bayelsa, you ask yourself, are you saying that there are government in this place? Are you saying we have governance? The amount of money, billions of naira running into trillions that have been released for the past 10 to 9 years. What is the signal? What can you point out to say, okay, this is what has been doing? What are the systems set in place for agriculture to function in the state? What are the systems set in place for industries to function? What are the systems or the policies set in place for some of these things to happen? I mean, interestingly, just recently, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, I heard the governor talk about a state investment something summit drive.
Economic summit.
No, not the summit. I think an agency to drive investment. Good. That is good and fine. And these are the kind of things we want to see. But we still have to hold the government to an account. The state government, just like Barrister mentioned, they are the people closest to us. These are the people we see. These are the people that go to the same market with us, whether we like it or not. These are the people that know our family members. These are the people that are close to us. The question is, what and how far have they done? Because there's no excuse. Nobody is saying that the federal government is not releasing enough money. I mean, quite interestingly, the state government of Rivers has said IGR has improved drastically. So what is the significance? What can we point out to say this is it? And I'm not talking politically now because I'm not really concerned about the politics right now. What I'm concerned about is good governance. What is being done by the state government? Who is the commissioner for agric in the state? And what is being done? What are the implementations? The state government has the ability to ensure that we buy the least locally produced, which is gari. How much do you buy gari? You go to the market, they will tell you that this gari is from Enugu State. they will tell you this gari is from. And we have the procedures of the gari, we have a Che gari, we have all of this, and yet the state government has not been able to regulate this sector. Let's just imagine that every other thing is expensive, but we're buying gari cheap. We can say, okay, the government is doing this.
Based on gari is 27,000. Last time I bought, by the way, it's more now.
It's more than that.
All right.
So for me, we need to hold the local government chairman that we see. What are you doing with the 5-10 billion that you're getting? It's not to renovate market.
We are looking at increased FAC allocation. We are looking at increased IGR of over 27 billion monthly. Monthly. Very important. So we know that. Increased FAC allocation. And when it comes to FAC allocation, over 1 trillion naira is shared.
And this is what you get monthly.
Now the president is making this startling revelation. Would you say in Rivers State that you feel the impact of all this increased FAC allocation, increased IGR, and even the recent billions being sent down to the state? Do you feel it in Rivers State? Very quickly, and then your final word.
Not just me. I will be speaking the mind of Rivers people. Rivers people don't feel anything. Nothing much is happening here as far as I'm concerned. The state is just, is not moving. The economy is not encouraging. Everywhere is just slow. Nothing is happening. It's as if, we are not even receiving anything. Maybe probably the few money received, His Excellency have channeled through the CTC member to share to those that are loyal and working with them. That's exactly what they have done. You see some of them buying vehicles, operational vehicles, even for the police. I happen to, question one. Why is your principal buying operational vehicles for police, who is a federal agency, and this is funds meant for the development of the local council and the local people? Why not channel that funds on healthcare, building markets, possibly increase